Hello, everyone. And hello, everyone on my side camera. So, yeah, I'm going to do this Magnus Hirschfeld, and obviously he's being done in green. And so, hopefully this will go a lot better. I'm going to go ahead and pull my paints down here, and that actually makes it better. That puts them on camera. I love it when you can actually see the artist's paint. I love all these. I love these perfectly laid out in grid form colors. That is my favorite look in the whole wide world when the paint is laid out in grid form like that. I think that looks really good. Oop. So here we go. I'm a painting away. So yeah, if you have any heroes of any kind, you know, take them out and paint along with me. Because it's always nice when people can paint together. It's lonely being an artist, you know? It's, as Kermit the Frog said, it's lonely being green. You know, he's the only green one around, you know? Mm. Oh, sorry, got a terribly itchy left ankle there. So that's interesting. Supposedly, if you have itchy ankles in the past, they said that that would mean that you'd be enslaved, you know, back in the day. Of course, that's forever ago now, but still interesting how something from a past life can pop up like that. I was just given that info from spirit. So that's a rather terrifying thought. I'll tell you that. So since I'm painting stuff green, and for anyone who, can't see well or can't really watch this too much, I figure that this is kind of like a podcast, really, since there's nothing to see anyway, other than just me painting. But here's a question. What do you think of aliens? You know, personally, I have found that it's not worth even listening to, you know, whatever it is, a spiritual teacher, leader, what have you, unless they are willing to admit that aliens do exist. I found that people ain't, they're just is which is the big reason. I used to be a really big fan of, what was his name? He's still around, so I really shouldn't say was. I just I quit having anything to do with him. He used to do a show called Star Talk. Apparently he quit doing it. I don't know why. Apparently it was a really good show, a real interesting show. But man, they got onto some controversial things. Can't remember his name for the life of me. But he's at least working as a scientist, and he has really made fun of people who at least claim to have been beamed up by aliens. Now, personally, um, when I was in my 20s, I didn't believe in such a thing. I was very down to earth. I was going to college, being brainwashed by the college stuff. And, you know, I thought I was reasonable and down to earth. But interestingly enough, I ended up dating a guy who, when he had been in his 20s and teens and whatnot, and he was, what, he'd been pushed 2 or 3 grades ahead. So he ended up going to college quite early. Um, but when he had been in his, however young he was when he went to college, he went to college in the 80s, and he was in the animatronics, and he was trying to learn how to build animatronic robots, quite literally. Oh, wow. See, in real life, this green isn't as nearly as bold and as vibrant and as dark as it is on this camera, my overhead camera. And on my side camera, it is nice, and there we go. It is nice and light and everything. It's about the right color in my side camera versus my overhead camera. In real life, it's definitely neon green, but it's kind of like a pale neon green. It's not that dark, it's not that vibrant, and it's leaving a lot of streaks. The streaks are way worse in real life than it is even on this camera, my overhead camera. So, and I'm glad to say that the black halo from the darn pen, the black halo around this guy's head and everything, is being completely washed away and completely covered by, and I'm just going to turn the page. Sorry everyone, for once I'm actually going to turn it upside down. But yeah, it is being completely covered by the paint here, so I'm quite glad about that. So anyway, back to the aliens thing. So I dated a guy who actually, he told me this unprompted and everything. He told me that when he was young, when he was a child, he had been beamed up by aliens. And I was like, what the heck? And I don't know why I asked this. I'm telling you, this was not me asking it. This was something else entirely. But it was a question that my dad would ask, because it's his line of thinking, But when he told me that, after he told me that, I literally asked, well, the people you date, they don't get beamed up too, do they? And I was shocked that that came out of my mouth, because I don't think like that. That isn't a question that I would ask. That isn't a question, anything at all. I mean, I would never assume that. He actually jumped, Now that's the kind of question that my dad would ask, but it's not the kind of question that I would ever ask. So this guy, who I was dating, who I went out with, after I asked him that, he actually jumped, and he was shocked, and it actually took him aback, and he blinked, and he thought for a while. He said, no, not that I know of. Every last person that I've dated, gone out with, they've been perfectly fine. Every last person. So I'm glad to hear that. As far as I know, but after that, I kind of took an interest in extraterrestrial stuff, And it was Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's the latest. That's the scientist who's done some really mean making fun of people, and people who claim to have been beamed up, because there is one running theme about all these people who have been beamed up, including the guy who I dated way back there I was 23, who claims to have been beamed up by aliens when he was a child. He, from what I heard and from what he told me, it was very, very clear that some sort of sexual abuse had happened to him. And it was just so blatantly obvious to me, when later on, in my late 20s, when I started looking into finally having the free time, and I didn't have anything else better to do, so I started looking into, I thought that there was all this alien, tall tales, kind of like Grimm's tales and stuff like that, that there'd be some sort of alien lore out there. And the weirdest thing in the world is that there was no alien lore out there. The most that I could find was people's firsthand accounts of being beamed up. And so I read that, because there was no extraterrestrial entertainment anywhere. Nothing, 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 nothing at all, nothing. You know, there was a few movies, but there was no books, there was no written words. You figure that there would be something that goes back, you know, hundreds of years, and there was nothing. There's all kinds of other stuff and other tales, but there was absolutely nothing in the line of extraterrestrials, which is really odd. And the most that I could find in line of anything extraterrestrial was people's firsthand accounts of being, quote, beamed up, unquote, and having all kinds of stuff being done to them. And I was just like, what the heck? And I ended up finding out that the only running theme in all of these aliens and extraterrestrial things is that there is definitely I'm just going to straight out say it, there's definitely a rape component to it across the board, male, female, you know, transgender, non-sexual, you name it, you know, not non-sex, you know, hermaphrodite, you name it. There's just across the board, you know, religious, non-religious. There is definitely a rape component to it, which is quite horrifying. And my initial thoughts on it were this, and I'm straight out going to say it here. Oops, sorry. I knocked the overhead camera. I noticed that in my 20s, I finally concluded, now I believe otherwise because, well, now I know otherwise, but in my 20s, I finally concluded that these people who believe, I used to think it was a belief, now I know it's a fact, these people who believed that they had been beamed up by extraterrestrials, I looked into it, I researched it, and I realized that these people had egos that were far too big to allow themselves to believe that they had been raped. And their subconscious was, as Freud said, you know, and I took psychology and everything, as Freud said, the subconscious will speak loud and clear. And so you need to, you know, the more you try to suppress, the more the subconscious will speak, and the louder the subconscious will scream and yell to the point where it is finally, permanently, and definitely heard and obeyed. And because of that, I realized in my 20s, well, back then, I realized that all these people who thought that they had been beamed up, they had actually been raped in one way or another by someone in their life, and they couldn't admit it. And I ended up thinking later on that it was more than likely done to them by someone who they held in high esteem. You know, whether that be a friend, a family friend, a relative, someone who they just could not admit to having hurt them. You know, they personally couldn't admit to some person having hurt them. And that was the realization that I came to in my 20s. Now I know better. Now I know that there is something that human beings would call extraterrestrial. Now I know that there is something that human beings would call foreign to this planet. Actually, they've been here far longer than us. And they are actually the ones who are doing horrific things to human beings. And it's not just rape. So, but there you go. There's some food for thought for this quick little paint up. 13 minutes and I'm done. So there you go for this. I've finished the green. And yeah, Magnus Hirschfeld. And I can guarantee I'm probably destroying that name too, and I'm sorry. But there you go. And thankfully, at least the neon green is showing up on both cameras this time. Both cameras. So I am definitely gonna have to fix up the background. I am definitely gonna have to do a second layer because it's all streaky like my, here we go. It's all streaky like my orange here. And the streaks are showing up a heck of a lot better on camera than they are in real life. But the neon is not showing up. It's interesting. Even now, the neon orange is not showing up, but the neon green is showing up, even when I put them both in the same frame together. I don't know. That's just weird. That's just because there's plenty of yellow. There's yellow in this, probably about the same amount of yellow in this as there is in that. And it shows the neon yellow perfectly fine, but it's not about to show the neon orange. I don't know why. So this is at the 15-minute mark, and thanks for painting along with me. Thanks for, you know what, most importantly, thanks for sitting here and listening to my little my little podcast, my little Let's Talk About Aliens podcast. So thanks and bye.